Welcome to the Living Your Legacy podcast.
I'm Kim Rain, a life coach and health mentor with over 13 years experience helping people lower their stress and anxiety, lose weight, sleep better and live happier, healthier, more purposeful lives.
I'm Helen Ranson. I've worked for 20 years as a self-employed psychotherapist and coach, helping clients of all ages and backgrounds who've experienced emotional issues, phobias and personal traumas.
The Living Your Legacy podcast is a quest to create amazing life stories, hang out in the moment and live a life full of joy.
Living Your Legacy is a podcast for anyone who wants to get off the sidelines and create the legacy they want to leave behind today.
So, here we are. Welcome. Helen, we've made it this far.
Just about.
Yeah, thanks for listening. So, welcome to the Living Your Legacy podcast. We are super excited to be here. We're a little bit nervous, a bit apprehensive.
We're a lot nervous.
But for us, this is our living our legacy. This is what it's all about, really, isn't it, Helen? It's getting out your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's about being bold and pushing ourselves, getting out of our comfort zone.
Absolutely. Doing the things that make you feel a bit uncomfortable, learning curves, putting yourself out there a little bit.
Absolutely.
Realising that all the things that can go wrong once you decide and set things in motion. And we want to share it with you guys, really. We kind of basically, this has all come from, well, we met on a yoga retreat, didn't we, in November? And we'd never met each other before. And I was really strangely attracted to Helen in quite an odd way.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get enough of her. And
quite concerning.
I really couldn't. I was just so interested in what you had to say. And then as we started talking, such similarities in so many of our stories and the people that we work with and just helping people sort of move through those fears that hold us back and stuff. So we were like, we've got to do something together. And then came the crazy idea of let's do a podcast. And then came, how the hell do we do that?
And what will we talk about?
Yeah. And it all seemed so much fun until we actually
tried it,
put pen to paper. And then the fear just kicked in, as it does. And I guess that's what it's about, isn't it? That's what Living Your Legacy is about. It's about overcoming those fears.
Yeah. So before starting to record this episode, we've had 45 minutes of interesting internet connections, haven't we? And false starts and
everything
hey
that
ho,
possibly go wrong, all those trials and tribulations. But the Living Your Legacy, so we decided we wanted to do a podcast, and then came, Living Your Legacy, the title. And I think probably, Helen, it's best if you kind of kick off with explaining that side of things, because it really came from your work in palliative care, didn't it? And
yeah. So for me, Living Your Legacy, it's about finding that extraordinary person inside all of us. And there definitely is one. So 5 years ago, I wrote a workbook called Surviving Me, which was aimed at giving emotional and psychological support to people who'd received sort of the worst news you could get. So a life-changing or a life-limiting diagnosis. And life for people in that situation suddenly becomes fragmented and stops still. And the trauma that hits them is just overwhelming. And their lives just change beyond belief. So before you hear those words, you're one individual, and the minute you hear them, there's no going back. Once they're heard and once you've processed them and integrated them inside yourself, there the journey begins.
And life's never probably quite the same, is it?
No, life is never the same.
I think it's also facing our own mortality, isn't it? I think it's for anybody that's really experienced grief, and what that means is that suddenly we're so vulnerable and we're not superhuman as we think that we are, and we're not going to last forever.
Well, I think it's, we manage to, as we sort of grow up through our childhood, we manage to ignore death quite nicely. And the older we get, the more we fast approach it ourselves. And facing your own mortality does very strange things to you. And it opens up a whole new way of thinking and feeling that previously we try not to be in contact with because it's too scary.
Yeah.
But obviously people who I work with in a palliative situation have no choice. Their choices have been taken away from them. And that they're facing an end, and usually an end with a finite time attached to it, which is incredibly scary. And they have to deal with day-to-day life from that point on. So the process for me was inspired by a very dear school friend of mine, Rachel, who sadly passed away a few years ago now. And she once said to me, tell me how to get out of bed each morning and live a good day, knowing that I now have secondary cancer and I've got a finite time to live. How do I carry on and live a good life? And that's the journey basically that I'm used to taking people on is helping them find those things that really do matter along the way whilst they're struggling with trauma and the trauma of being in that desperate situation.
And that's when our conversation was like, but why wait till you're in that life
Absolutely.
changing
Yeah.
situation? Why wait until you do know that you've just got this a small amount of time left? And quite often it is that sudden wake up call that you get. And actually, why not wake up right now? Why not wake up and realize, look around and think, you know what? I am living in fear. I am living scared. And quite often people are living that way anyway. They just don't
Yeah.
don't really realize it. Relationships, jobs, situations that actually are very changeable, but we're held back by fear.
There's something about fear that really focuses the attention. And
Mm,
and it's how do we focus our attention and live in the moment and, start this story that is us today, living it fully today without the fear.
yeah.
That's really tough thing to do. We all have wonderful intentions as we go along through our life to change and do things differently, but I'm afraid we have quite a negative default setting in our psyche
Yeah.
that takes us back into old habits very, very easily.
But also as well, that is there for our protection. And that's the trouble is, there is set inside us, we have this negative bias that is there to keep us safe. It's a survival
Absolutely.
mechanism.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
that's true.
these days it isn't saber-toothed tigers that are the problem. It tends to be people and what they think of us and what we think of them. And should we have said this and should we have said that? And it holds us in fear and stops us moving forward.
Mm, mm.
And fear is, like we said, as soon as we decided to do this podcast and we were talking about it and we were excited about it and we were so full of ideas and we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about that. And then we, put our money where our mouth is, signed in the dotted line. And suddenly it was like, oh my God. And all of these fears came in, all of these little voices of, well, what if this and what if that? And what are you going to talk about? And da, da, da. And ultimately, they're there to keep us safe.
Yeah,
They're there to,
absolutely.
to to stop us making complete fools of ourselves. We'll see how. Hopefully, we've done the right thing by not listening to them, eh, Helen?
Absolutely. Well, we will see. We will see, won't we?
But yeah, so in terms of that negative bias, I think that that's something that we're all wired to. I mean, we come from the most negative people in the world because if you weren't negative, you didn't survive. So that is our survival mechanism. So we're wired to hold on to the negative things that happen to us, to the horrible things that happen to us, to the did they say something about me, or last time I did that they all laughed, or if that happens. And we're held back by that. And actually it's understanding that we don't need to be held back by that we can push through that, because that's only our thoughts, that's only what we think. It's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the work I've sort of done with people in the past has been working on breaking those habits of thought and emotion, and helping people to move through fear and move through that sort of paralysis that fear leaves you with, and make new habits and change that default setting, that negative place that most people start from in survival mode, in that natural survival mode that we all have.
Why do you think it is that so many people do wait for that trauma to hit, do wait for that?
I think that we are mentally and emotionally disempowered. I think we give away our power from a very early age, and through all the processes, the socialization processes we go through in life. From being parented through schools, through teens, through social media. All these things take away. who we really are, and we tend to
Yeah.
act our way. It's almost like acting a role through life. We walk around with name badges and masks on, and we perform to other people's standards. And I think most of the people I meet have a distinct lack of being able to measure their own success. So
Yeah.
they don't know how to value themselves and value the things that are actually important to them in their lives, which would help them live fulfilled and positive and purposeful lives. They've lost touch with them.
Or even know what's important to them. I find that quite often, with my clients, by the time, we get to, I mean, I guess for me, most of my clients are at 40 plus, and actually by the time we get there, most of us, we've tried on so many identities. We've played, like you say, so many roles. We've been so many different things to so many people that actually who we are is lost in there some way and left quite often way, way, way back. And sometimes even back as far as, really early childhood, where we have the dreams and the hopes and all the things that we can be and want to be. And then someone says, well, no, you can't do that because you're not that good at this, or you're never going to be a champion football player, or all the things that we kind of shelf. And quite often I find that people don't know who they are because they've, in our basics, we start off life as children. We might have siblings we try and please, then we go into friendship groups, and then that's a whole social arena where we're trying to fit in. And ultimately, again, fitting in is one of the most important things that we can do as social beings. So it's really important, and in order to fit in, we do try on different identities and take on different roles. And each time we do that, we lose more and more of our own true identity. So I think that it gets to the point where it isn't even that we're too scared to go for what we want at first. I think it's just that we just don't know who we are to know what we want anymore.
Yeah, I think people definitely aren't in touch with their values. I think if you live your life through your own personal value set and your own moral code, then you'll be happy. But so
Yeah.
often we're sort of fitting ourselves into the wrong spaces, aren't we, as we go through life? And we're doing it
Yeah.
really because we feel we should. There's lots of should
Yeah.
involved in enabling people to live their lives. They live by shoulds instead of, I say to my clients, don't think about things, just feel them. If you need to work out whether you're going to make a good decision or a bad decision, don't think too long about it. Try and get back in touch with your heart and your intuition, and feel the answer rather than tell me what you
Yeah.
think you should do. Because by articulating that, they're telling me what somebody else thinks they should do, not what they should.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, you know, again, that comes back to our belief systems, which 9 times out of 10 aren't
Well,
even
then
our
they're
own
not our
very
own. And,
often.
I suppose people facing a life limiting time and hearing those words are suddenly trapped in a space of limbo, and finding their resilience at that moment in time is so difficult. And yet so many of these people, the one thing that I find incredibly remarkable about working in palliative care is that people they rise to the top. It's just amazing how resilient and strong we are emotionally if we have the right sort of support to get back in touch with our true selves, rather than letting the identity of, say, disease or mental illness take us over.
Or indeed any sorts of trauma.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything will sort of suck you up and take away the essence of who you actually are, if you allow it to.
Yeah, if you allow it, again, if you allow it to become your identity, and I guess that's easier said than done in some cases, but people do the most amazing things. We are amazing beings and so resilient, but again, sometimes we just get caught in that rabbit in the
Yeah,
headlights.
yeah.
There's your fight or freeze, and quite often for me, when I start working with people, they're
Mm,
frozen.
mm.
They don't know which way to turn anymore. Quite often they've lost the fight. They've had enough of the fighting. They've had enough of the running away, and now they're just frozen, and they don't know which way to turn. They don't really know what they were looking to get out of
And being
life.
frozen leaves you completely disempowered, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And completely, in as I say, in that limbo space, not knowing how to proceed with your life or get in touch with those parts of you that have got you through tricky times in the past. You know, if we could all write down everything difficult that's ever happened to us and see how we got through it, remembering our strengths and our coping strategies. But these are things that we don't do, and that's part of the work I do with palliative individuals in palliative care. That we help them to re-identify themselves really away from disease.
Hmm. And to look back, because and I sort of quite often say to my clients, I work with a lot of people who are actually really stuck in the past. So I'm sort of like, okay, let's stop looking back, let's start looking forward. But actually, there are times when it's really good and really empowering to look back and see the amazing things that you have got
Yes,
through.
absolutely.
And that understanding that actually your struggles make you who you are. They give you the story, they give you your strength. And it seems crazy sometimes to think of it, but whatever you go through, you will come out stronger, you will come out wiser, you will come out with more resilience. And even, I say that to my clients when they struggle with watching their children go through, not massive trauma, but just that day-to-day teenage angst of
Mm.
growing up, and that whole desire to jump in and save the day. And actually, I say to them, when do you remember having to build your own resilience and actually having your own hard times? And actually, if we try and jump in and save everybody all the time, then we disempower them. You
Absolutely.
need to
Yeah.
go that through for your own power.
And that's one of the exercises in the Surviving Me workbook that I take people through, is actually pacing them backwards and looking at those events in their life when they have performed well. And you know it might have been an uncomfortable time or traumatic or different, but they get through and they come out the other side. And we do get through things. The most difficult of situations, we survive, literally. So, and the
Yeah.
living your legacy idea came from actually trying to help people record that in some way. So, record their story rather than letting someone else in a eulogy tell it for you. To actually live it now. Don't wait until you're gone for somebody else to share their insights about you. Why don't you do it yourself now? And we encourage
Yeah.
people to actually put themselves down in whatever creative way they feel able to record, whether it's
Hmm.
writing or diarising their lives or using artwork or whatever to make it more creative.
So they've got something to leave behind. And that's, again, I think there's a big rise in journaling as well.
Yeah.
Journaling's become, journaling. I used to love journaling when I was a kid. I always wrote a diary, every day for years and years. And then it kind of seems to have gone out of fashion, and it is now kind of coming back. And it's something that I really encourage my clients to
Mm.
do, is a daily kind of journal. And it can be things that you've done or things that you've overcome, or even just writing down your worries and your fears, and just letting down and getting down on paper who you are.
Yeah. Very, very good as well for people, with mental health issues to actually express themselves on paper.
Mm,
Very good for remembering, when people are suffering depression or brain fog, to actually articulate themselves in that way so that they can look back and look at progress, and they can look forward and look at what's ahead of them to put their sort of world in some sort of framework.
yeah. So we're going to be talking over the next 10 episodes about how we kind of put the strategies, and how we put these into practice, and how we kind of like help people move forward. Don't wait till you've got that diagnosis. Start living it now. Start really delving into yourself, and not being afraid of what you're going to find out or what it means, because sometimes that can mean, letting go of stuff, and that can be really painful, and it can be, you know it can hold you in fear. But we've got stuff coming up. We're going to talk about being bold and brave, taking opportunities, making the choices, and really breaking out of your comfort zone. And that's something that I see a lot in coaching. We talk a lot about saboteurs and getting people over that part whereby they're looking at who they are, what they want to achieve, and they can dream like us with the podcast. We can
Oh,
dream about it, you can talk about it, and then it comes to taking action, and then it comes to that fear kicking in, and getting to know those voices in your head, or all the things that are hiding in the shadows of your psyche, and actually getting them out and saying, you know what, let's see you come out the dark. You're not that scary.
Mm.
Let's see who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And balancing the sort of exposure to stress while you're doing that is something as well that I'm very aware of working with people, introducing them to those ideas gradually or at their own pace. That's something that's, you need to be careful with people in trauma.
Yeah.
So, why living your legacy for you?
I think for me, it really is about, all the things that you talk. It's just about that sudden. I didn't realize, I didn't actually realize that we were mortal until I was 41, when a friend of mine passed away. One minute he was there, the next minute he was gone. And it was a real shock to
Mm,
me. And it sounds really crazy to get to that age and just not to have, this realization. But I didn't really take life very seriously until then. And now I'm like, my God, don't wait, because you do not
yeah,
know how many more tomorrows you've got. And when you are like, oh, tomorrow, 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 you don't know that you've got tomorrow. So it's about doing things today. It is about the being bold and being brave, and actually being brave enough to be who you are, being brave enough. I think once you embrace who you truly, truly are, once you can embrace that, then actually you can go into the world as that person, and then things will start to fall into place. For me, I see a lot of people who are just, again, like you say, taking on those roles, trying to be so many things for so many other people, that actually their authentic self is completely lost. And so for them, living their legacy is, they're trying to live other people's legacies. They're trying to live up to people's
mm,
expectations. They're trying to please people all the time. And it's about actually tapping into all those things that you really want, all those things that you put on the back burner, all those things that you haven't got time for, or it's not convenient, or it's going to upset this person, or that person's going to be inconvenienced, or, I can't because I've got to do X, Y, and Z. But, all these things that we do, for me, living your legacy is like, actually, it's not doing the big things. It's just about living true to yourself,
yeah, and
being your
making,
authentic self.
having a good day each day. Having a part
Yeah.
of that day that's, I spent the morning this morning with a lady at my local hospice who I work with who's got a terminal condition, and we fragment the days down into hours. We fragment the hours down into half hours because that's what life becomes. A day is a very long time, or can be a very long time, in the life of somebody who's suffering in that way, and trying to bring as many good moments into that day by making different choices, actually, and intervening in your own life, being coherent about your values and your dreams, and what actually really does matter at that point in your life,
Hmm.
and saying, right, I need more of this in my life today and less of this other rubbish.
I think as well, our expectations of having a good day are so high.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
bet your expectations are severely lowered, significantly
Oh,
lowered,
absolutely.
when you have that diagnosis. When you have that diagnosis, and again, for me, like you say, having a good day doesn't mean having a perfect day.
No,
It
no.
just means having some really great moments in that day, and most of those moments are in that moment, right here and right
Yeah.
now.
So I'm making them really, really matter. Doing the things that really, really matter to you, and bringing more and more of them into each day. So whether you're into your meditation, or like us into our yoga, where we take that space, and we have that real quality me time. Whatever it is for you, whether it's walking the dog or being outside or cooking or anything, it's about making sure that
Mm.
those things happen, and that's part of a good day. A good day doesn't have to be lottery wins and dancing on the table, you know? Most of us never get there. That's a good day for most people might be having less pain, or an extra hour's sleep, or
just a cuddle with someone, a conversation.
The small things are really important, but I think we all feel very inadequate if we can't value our days in the conventional way of how much have I earned, what car am I driving, who am
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
socializing with, how
I was
much
going
do
to
I
say, how much am
weigh?
I loved? Yeah. Yeah.
All those things that we all those targets that we set ourselves that are completely unrealistic. And we forget about, the walks in the sunshine and the looking outside. I was putting the chickens to bed last night and looking up at the stars. What a beautiful night it was last night. It's those moments of just taking a couple of minutes to, really appreciate
Yeah.
the the beauty that you have around you, and to make the most of those very small moments is really important. Very, very and becomes
Yeah.
more important obviously when your focus is on end of life. So let's not wait for that. Let's do it today.
Yeah, and even I think for me that was my lesson from losing my friend, and from my own sort of health problems, burning out, and one thing another, striving to, for what? I don't really know for what. When I suddenly realized that actually what was really important, what made me feel alive and thrive, was a cuddle with my kids, or
Mm.
just making myself a really nice a meal and having a good conversation with my husband or my friend or whatever it was actually that in the moment, enjoying the simplest things. And I can't ever imagine a time, or I couldn't imagine a time, if you'd have said that to me 10 years ago, I'd have been like, well, the conversations are the conversations, they just come and go and but actually it is thinking about, one of these days we are all going to be taking our last breaths, and
Mm.
when that happens, what do you want to look back on? What do you want your memories to be? And, a big thing that I say to my clients is, you are not going to remember what dress size you are. You're not going to remember what car you were driving. You're going to remember who you were with. You're going
Yeah.
to care about who's there to hold your hand. And, you're going to remember the wonderful meal that you went for on the Algarve or wherever it was, and not what dress size you were, just the wonderful conversation you had with your partner. And it's just really the sun on your face. That's what's important. It is not what dress size you are, what car you're driving.
So the other interesting thing we do at the hospice is that we record life stories, which uh, and these are for people obviously who are very life limited, and we treat it as a therapy, and it's a wonderful therapy to tell your story. It's very healing, even if you have a traumatic story to tell, which is obviously the basis of counseling, that you go and talk to people and you talk about your trauma and your anxiety and your fears, and the act of sharing and having a witness to your journey alleviates the stress. So the same with people in the hospice, that they record their life stories, and people do love to share their stories, and it's
Yeah.
the most wonderful experience hearing people talk and seeing that the pleasure that they actually get from sharing their story in their own words. And then of course there's that wonderful gift that's left behind when they've gone, that we
Yeah.
have the recording of those really personal memories of the person that we're grieving for, which actually keeps them in the room.
Yeah.
It has this amazing effect of making grieving easier when we do share our legacy. So I'm really passionate about people telling their stories and sharing them in order to not just heal themselves, but to inspire and motivate others, and to give that gift to those that they're going to leave behind.
And you've said to me before, Helen, at the end of the day, and that really resonated with me. And I think when we were in the early days, when we were talking about this, at the end of all of this, all you have to leave behind, all that will ever be left behind, is your stories.
Well, that's all we are. We're story, and usually, as I said earlier, in somebody else's words, and that doesn't feel right to me. You
No.
know, um, that doesn't quite feel right to me.
Well,
That
it's
that
their opinion and it's their beliefs.
absolutely,
And
that somebody else says how it was for us when we've got the vocabulary to do it ourselves. But actually, to be able to use it to inspire, I mean, these people that I work with are so inspirational. I learn so much on a personal level from every trauma client that I work with. Every session is a gift. It's a gift to me because it holds up a mirror to myself, my own thoughts, my own life. And it shows me how empowering using your own words and living your own values and empowering yourselves and taking back sometimes tiny bits of control in your life when you feel out of control. Just how effective that can be in helping you to have a good day.
Yeah.
One day at a time, just baby steps, and if necessary, break that day down into hours and minutes. And
But all of this is relative. What you're saying is relative for people, who haven't got a life-changing diagnosis, but that have depression or are living in anxiety or, living in fear. And actually, quite often, when it seems such an insurmountable task, when you're feeling so low, so overwhelmed, whatever it is, so stressed, to think of a time when you can possibly be free of that seems so insurmountable. So it is about just taking it one little step at a time, just slowing things down and really feeling, just that step at a time. And I think that it's not just people with that diagnosis, it is people that are, you know, like there's having that diagnosis, but there's so many people that are living in that same fear.
yeah.
They may as well have that diagnosis.
Well, I'm
you know.
afraid, the stats say that 50% of us will have cancer through our life.
Really?
So if anybody wants a really scary
There's
statistic
a
out
cheery,
there that's really
cheery
going to
thought for
make
you
you
guys.
sit up and get on, here you go. And this is the real McCoy.
What
50%
percentage
of
of
us
50%?
will have cancer. And if you think about it, what's the other 50% going to be doing? They're going to be caring for those with cancer. So we have an extreme situation here of people spending their lives as carers and looking after family members, maybe partners, maybe children. So all our lives are going to be compromised in many, many ways. So it's really important that we focus on the small things, the things that we can achieve on a day-to-day basis. I saw a really I've not got a lot of time for social media, but I did see one interesting little snippet on social media the other day, and it was a little sort of advert that said, "Start with one sit up, one phone call, one chapter, read one chapter, walk 1 mile.
Yeah.
Have one healthy meal a day." And I thought, that's absolutely what this is all about. It's about breaking down this overwhelm that we've sort of found ourselves in as a society of stress and anxiety and living in this a lack of reality, really.
Yeah.
And getting to grips with it again and starting in a very small, defined way. Whatever works for you, everybody's got a different way, everybody's got a different journey.
Yeah.
You have to find your own way through. And you have to create your own rules and your own boundaries along the way and then stick to them.
And that's what one of the things for me, I think as well, it's like, what is the one thing that you can do today? Don't worry about the rest thing, but what is the one thing that you can do today? And whatever it is, however small it is, like you say, it's taking that first step. It's like, if you want to run a marathon, you can't walk out the door and run the 26 miles straight off. You have to start with those first few steps and build it up.
You have to train.
Yeah.
You have to train. Absolutely. And, we accept that when it's something physical or physiological that happens to us, like a broken leg or, we can accept that. But when we're talking about anxiety and trauma and depression and grief, those invisible illnesses that we all suffer, we have to practice and train for those too, in exactly the same way.
The other thing is, I had a client today and we were talking and she said, but we were talking about personal growth and she's like, but I'm so impatient, so I want that to happen now. And it's like, but it's like watering a seed, it happens slowly, but unfortunately we live in a society that just wants instant gratification. So we want instant happiness. We want to feel instantly better about ourselves, which is why we do things like, all the things that we do, social media, shopping, all these little things you can do to give you that little dopamine hit to make you feel a little bit better instantly. We're so addicted to it, we think we deserve it, and we think that everything should happen instantly. And that's not what it's about. It's about a journey. It is about rediscovering and growing, and that doesn't happen instantly. I always say with my clients, I don't have a magic wand. It's not about in a time machine. You have to go on the journey. You have to do the work, and you have to sit in that. Sometimes, I find when I'm stuck and I want to be growing and I want to be moving forward, but that's just not how it is all the time. Sometimes you need to just be patient and just tune into yourself and what's really going on in your life, rather than looking around for the next hit of gratification and the next thing that's going to make you feel good. It's just about slowing down and sitting and feeling comfortable with where you are.
So let's just go through the episodes that we're going to put together. Let's just run through our sort of guide headings that we have for.
Yeah. So I mean, what we've really looked at here is kind of coming together with what we're using to help people, move on. And so we've got, that living in the moment. We're going to be looking at the mindful and grateful moments that you can have in the modern world, because unfortunately the modern world doesn't lend itself very well to living in the moment. It's always, what can you get tomorrow, and what went wrong yesterday, and blah blah blah. So talking about our fear and our demons, and learning about gratitude and being humble and that sort of thing. We're going to be talking about disconnecting and reconnecting with our true selves and our authentic selves. And learning to really let go of all the things that sort of hold you back. We're also going to be looking, Helen, at like our values. So understanding what our true values are, so that we can, again, our true values, not our parents' values, because most of our values and our beliefs and they're not even our values and beliefs, and they're probably not even our parents' values and beliefs. They're our parents. They get handed down from generation to generation.
Well, we unfortunately have to function in a society, don't we? And we
Yeah.
take on the rules of the herd in order to survive. It's part of going back to that survival instinct that we have to play the game to a certain extent, which doesn't take account of individual values and personalities and emotional states, does it? So
Yeah.
people become stressed
Yeah.
at fitting in in areas that really they don't belong in.
And it's that being out of alignment. When you're out of alignment, when you're trying to fit in, when you're not being yourself, because you feel stressed, you feel anxious, you feel overwhelmed, you feel snappy, and it just doesn't feel right. So really and ultimately, it's looking at that sort of stuff. We're going to be talking about what to leave behind and what to let go of, like kind of cleaning out your closet sort of stuff, and looking at the energy in your relationships, because sometimes it's looking around at what is and what isn't serving you, and looking at our rules that we live by, our moral code, and our integrity and our values. Also, we're going to be telling you like how we do it, what we do to be living our legacy.
Yeah, and you know what? I've just listened to you reel off that list of sort of episodes, and what sort of gets me is that everything becomes commercialized now, and there's classes on mindfulness and meditation and this and that, and all the words that we're actually using quite naturally because we work with them. People will be listening to right now and thinking, here we go,
Yeah.
here's another idea. But actually what we're talking about is real life. And I think what both of us are bringing to the table here, which hopefully will be of interest to people listening right now, is
Yeah.
real life stories and what has worked with people. And we're not here to sell a new thing. We're here to share and hopefully inspire and tell you about people that who have been in extraordinary situations, who have got through and how they've done it.
And how you guys can do it as well.
To share those life skills and tips to get us all through whatever it is we're facing.
Awesome.
So let's not get too wrapped up in words.
I know.
Even though we're chatting away here, but I think that's the big message of what we're trying to do with our podcast is we want to share and motivate and share real life stories with people of endurance and resilience and people coping and people not coping, and the fact that it's okay. Whatever happens, it's actually okay, and it's okay to fail sometimes. It's really okay to fail
Oh, yeah.
and to struggle and to be stressed, and you know, you're not on your own.
Yeah. Failing's good. We like a bit of failure because it means you're growing.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't feel very nice at the time.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we will see you next week in our next episode.
Yeah, we will. We've enjoyed it. We've muddled our way through this, I think.
We have muddled our way
We've had
through
so
it.
many false starts, and
thank you for bearing with us.
Internet connections are a bit of a problem as we're sort of talking a long way apart, aren't we? We're at different sides of the country here, so we're struggling with technology, but hey ho, we'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay, guys, we will speak to you next week.
Take care.
Subscribe, share, tell all your friends and everyone you know.
Absolutely.
And help them live their legacies. Let's all live our legacies.
So that's all for now. Go away, enjoy the rest of your day, and have a good think about it. We hope you enjoyed the Living Your Legacy podcast. If you did, subscribe and come back for the next one. If you didn't, well, there's no accounting for taste.